In the 1980s, a neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet performed an experiment that troubled philosophers and scientists alike and is still debated today. He asked volunteers to flex their wrist whenever they felt like it, and to note the position of a clock hand at the moment they became conscious of the urge to move. Electrodes monitored their brain activity. What he found was disturbing. The brain began preparing for the movement about half a second before the person became consciously aware of the intention to move. The implications seemed stark. If the brain decides before consciousness knows, where is free will? Is the experience of choosing just a story the conscious mind tells itself after the decision is already made? The Cayce readings have a response to this. It is philosophically sophisticated, and it goes somewhere neuroscience cannot follow, because it begins with a distinction that neuroscience has not made. Let us be precise. Libet himself did not conclude that free will is an illusion. He offered a more nuanced interpretation. Even if the brain initiates a movement before consciousness registers the intention, consciousness might still be able to veto that movement. He called this free won't, the capacity to inhibit or override an action that is already underway neurologically. This is philosophically important. It means the question is not whether consciousness initiates action from scratch. It may be whether consciousness can intercept, redirect, or refuse an action that the nervous system has already begun preparing. But even this framing stays entirely within the domain of neurological events. It treats free will as a property of brain states. The Cayce readings begin from a completely different ontological premise. That will is not a brain state at all. It is an attribute of spirit. In the readings framework, will is one of the three essential attributes of God, alongside spirit and mind. When souls were created in the image of God, they were endowed with will as a spiritual attribute. This is what makes genuine companionship possible. A relationship requires the real freedom to choose or refuse it. This means that free will, in its deepest sense, is not the ability to twitch a finger at a moment of your choosing. It is the capacity to choose your fundamental orientation, toward or away from your source, toward or away from love, toward or away from soul development. Essentially, the question is whether the timing of a trivial hand movement rises to the level of free will as an activity of the soul, or simply represent the conscious mind on autopilot with the will asleep. The key phrase is, will asleep. The readings suggest that for much of daily life, the deeper will, the soul's genuine capacity for spiritual choice, is dormant. The conscious mind runs on automatic, driven by past patterns, habit, heredity, and environment. What Libet's experiments may actually be measuring is the conscious mind on autopilot, not the will in its full spiritual expression. Here is where the Cayce readings introduce a distinction that is genuinely original in the context of the free will debate. Mind and will are not synonymous. In fact, the readings insist they are in opposition. Think about what this means. Mind, as the builder, operates primarily through patterns. It works with ideas, memories, and associations that are, by nature, drawn from the past. The readings note this explicitly. Before any condition exists in the finite mind, it has already become a past condition. Mind is temporally oriented toward what has been. Will, by contrast, is oriented toward what is becoming. Mark Thurston puts it this way: the will is like a seed. It is of your future. The will draws you toward that which you are to become. The will is the principal agent of spiritual evolution. This creates a precise philosophical model of how the will operates. When a thought arises in the mind, a habitual reaction, a pattern of behavior, an impulse shaped by past experience, the will can intercept it, not by generating a new initiative from scratch, but by choosing to discard what the mind presents. This is, in essence, what Libet called free won't, but grounded in a completely different metaphysical framework. The will does not initiate action in the way the conscious mind imagines it does. It intercepts, redirects, and refuses. It works in the gap between stimulus and response, and that gap is where soul development actually happens. There is a further dimension here that takes the conversation beyond anything neuroscience touches. The readings describe two levels of will operating in the human being. The familiar surface will, the effort of willpower, the decision to choose the salad instead of the cake, the deliberate choice to do something we know is right, is the conscious will. This is real and worth developing, but it can become rigid, repressive, or simply exhausting if treated as the whole of will. Beneath it is what Thurston calls the sleeping will, a deeper capacity within the soul that is oriented not toward what the ego wants, but toward what the soul needs for its development. This is the will toward wholeness, the will toward enlightenment. The will that, when awakened and aligned with the conscious will, becomes the engine of genuine spiritual evolution. The practical implication for daily life is significant. The readings do not encourage an aggressive, forceful exercise of willpower. They encourage bringing the conscious will into alignment with this deeper will, which means ultimately bringing personal will into alignment with the divine will. That is the essence of what the readings call companionship, choosing to co-create with the first cause rather than against it. Libet's experiment measures the timing of a finger twitch. The readings are concerned with the orientation of a soul. These are not the same experiment, and they are not measuring the same thing. The free will debate in neuroscience and philosophy tends to operate entirely within the physical domain: brain states, neural timing, conscious versus unconscious processes. The Cayce readings acknowledge all of that as relevant, but locate the deepest question elsewhere entirely. Free will, at the level of the soul, is not about whether you can initiate a finger movement before your brain does. It is about whether, in the fundamental choices of your life, your ideals, your relationships, your direction, you are awake or asleep. Whether the deeper will is dormant or active. Whether you are running on the past or genuinely reaching toward what you are becoming. Think of a pattern in your life that feels compulsive, something that seems to run itself. Is the will asleep there? What would it take to wake it up, not with force, but with genuine spiritual intention?